It is an annual migration that has been taking place for over 100 years. Baseball teams and their fans make their pilgrimage to the Sunshine State to escape winter's icy grip and begin a journey they all hope will end in a champagne-soaked victory celebration. But for some organizations, spring training is more than just preparing for the season to come. It's about visiting what has become the franchise's second home, a place where bonds have grown so strong, it's almost impossible to imagine these teams and towns not spending the month of March together.
The City of Clearwater is really, really proud of the fact that the Phillies have this long history in Clearwater, and we've been able to work together on projects as we needed even, new ballpark at Bright House Field and things of that nature. So it really has been a mutual relationship.
I remember when we first came down here, the Canadian people, including me, were calling it everything from Dunedin to Dunedin to Dunedin. But after a couple of years, everybody knows, and everybody in Canada knows about Dunedin, and it's the home of the Blue Jays.
Everybody knows where Disney World is. They know where the Busch Gardens is in Tampa. What's in Port Charlotte, that's one of the things that sticks in those people's minds now is, oh, that's where the Rays have spring training.
For the Bay Area, the yearly ritual that becomes Major League Baseball spring training begins in 1913, when Mayor D.B. McKay brings the Chicago Cubs to Tampa.
McKay lures the Chicago Cubs in coming here. They promise room, board, and expenses for 35 players.
Not to be outdone, the following year a group of civic leaders across the Bay, led by Al Lang, are able to convince Branch Rickey and his St. Louis Browns to come to St. Petersburg. They play the city's first ever spring training game in front of a packed house on February 27, 1914.
The city invested a lot of money in that trip. They built a facility on Coffee Pot Bayou. They paid for the Browns to come. They paid for the Browns front office to come. And here's the key. They paid for 5 St. Louis sports writers to come because Lang understood that having a spring training here was going to be ultimately meaningless to the growth of the city if the people outside the city, in the places where the winters were cold, didn't know that it was here.
The city built new streetcars to bring people. They built a pier at Coffee Pot Bayou so steamboats could come there. The afternoon, all the businesses closed. I think the Times said this is the first time in the city history that baseball has shut the city down.
By the following year, St. Louis has moved on, but the success of that first spring training visit leaves an indelible impression on the city of St. Petersburg.
The Browns were here, the Phillies came, the Phillies won a National League pennant in the year that they trained here, and they credited their pennant to the beautiful weather that they'd had in St. Petersburg for camp. It was as if Al Lang had written the copy.
Not only did it kick off spring training coming to St. Petersburg, and he's known as kind of like the father of baseball in Florida, because he brought it here to stay. A lot of people didn't think he'd be able to pull it off, and he did. And it just opened the floodgates for Major League Baseball to come to Florida.
Lang's vision of using spring training as a way to raise the profile of the city is taken to new heights when the New York Yankees make Waterfront Park their home in 1925.
Wherever Babe Ruth came, it was like a presidential entourage of reporters. That he was the first guy that newspapers paid their own money to cover. That, prior to Babe Ruth, the ball clubs picked up the tabs for the traveling reporters. For Babe Ruth, his story was so big that newspapers assigned reporters specifically just to cover Babe Ruth.
In 1938, the St. Louis Cardinals come to St. Pete, giving the city 2 of baseball's premier franchises, making it the undisputed epicenter of spring training. World War II and government-imposed travel restrictions prevent teams from coming to Florida for several years. But when the big one ends, spring training comes back stronger than ever.
It is almost a validation of why we fought. I mean, the boys are home, the economy is booming. Baseball had been severely curtailed during the war. DiMaggio and Hank Greenberg and hundreds of others go off to war. And so in '46, it's peacetime, it's prosperity, and it's springtime Florida. I mean, it's perfect harmony.
As World War II comes to an end, St. Petersburg is home to the Yankees and the Cardinals, making it the undisputed center of spring training in Tampa Bay. But just up the road in Clearwater, the city and the Philadelphia Phillies are ready to begin a relationship that will stand the test of time. Clearwater is no stranger to spring training, having hosted several teams in the 20s and 30s, including the Brooklyn Dodgers.
Back then, teams were looking for, baseball facilities, fields to play on, a ballpark to maybe play a couple of exhibition games in. And then secondly, they looked at, well, what else is in the community? Will our players like it here? Will our front office like it here? Will the writers who come down to cover us like it here? And Clearwater had all of that going for it.
Already familiar with the area, the Phillies like what they see and decide to give Clearwater a shot.
The Phillies came in 1947 and were playing at the old Green Athletic Field, which is in the Greenwood area of Clearwater. And they identified within the next couple of years this site right there that they had available to build Jack Russell Stadium. There was a person on the city council for the city of Clearwater who was a former pitcher in the major leagues. His name was Jack Russell, thus Jack Russell Stadium, who was really devoted to building a legitimate spring training major league ballpark in the city of Clearwater.
I think Jack was a pioneer in doing something like that. It was great for Jack Russell to push for that to happen. He was a Major League Baseball player for a while, and it was just really wonderful for him to take that upon himself to help bring the Phillies here for spring training.
Jack Russell Stadium was built in 1955, and my understanding was the entire project was about $150,000. To build from start to finish. So you can imagine, it was stereotypical of the type of parks they were building. They were big concrete bowls that would hold about 5,000 fans. In the early stages of Jack Russell, I know there were folding chairs in all of those areas of the ballpark. There was no fixed seating.
In the mid-60s, the Phillies want to expand their training facilities and work with the city to create Carpenter Complex, a groundbreaking cloverleaf design that's the brainchild of scout Paul the Pope Owens.
It was his idea, and then he began to work with some planners and even architects on it and envisioned this 4-field complex with a clubhouse in the middle and towers above each field so that the administration could come upstairs into these towers or stairwells and literally walk around and see each field and observe each field.
With the 20th century quickly coming to a close, Jack Russell is ready to be replaced. And while municipalities across Florida and Arizona are building new state-of-the-art complexes in hopes of luring teams to their towns, the Phillies are committed to staying in Clearwater and working with the city to make a new ballpark a reality.
The city was involved in it, the county was involved in it, the state government was involved in it. And there was money contributions from everybody, including the Phillies. It's their commitment to the city and their commitment to making this a great facility. And I think it's worked out very well for them.
Bright House Field opens in 2004, further cementing a partnership between Clearwater and the Phillies that has been going strong for over 70 consecutive years.
The economic impact now of spring training alone to the city of Clearwater, the latest update, has it over like $120 million per spring. So it's a major player in the community. With the relationship that we have and the partnership that we've been able to establish, There's not a lot of people in any business that can say they've had 70-year partnerships. So I think it's a real sense of pride on both parties. And again, Clearwater's a wonderful place to be.
It's such a beautiful relationship. There is a big reason that they've been here for 70 years, plus years at this point. And I hope they're here for another 70 plus years, and people, when I'm long gone, will realize that relationship and will be able to continue making sure from a state, county, city, and personal level that the Phillies are here forever.
I got to believe that, you know, if all of spring training goes away and no one takes spring training, the Phillies will be the last team there because Clearwater is Clearwater.
Today, the west coast of Florida is home to 9 teams for spring training. Some, like the Pirates, Blue Jays, and Phillies, have long histories with their host cities, while others, like the Yankees, have taken up residence in several places going back to the 20s. But when you're talking about teams, towns, and long-term partnerships, none can top the Tigers and Lakeland. Discounting the 3 years World War II travel restrictions kept the team from coming to Florida, Detroit's run in the All-American City dates back to 1934.
Over the decades that Lakeland and the Tigers have had that arrangement, there have been, you know, hundreds of thousands of visitors that have come down and stayed for a weekend or a week or a month. And there have been thousands of Michiganders who have come down and bought homes in Lakeland. And they've bought homes in Lakeland because the Tigers were there. They wanted that connection with their home.
With a contract that runs through 2036 and major renovations to Joker Marchant Stadium, that connection is as strong as ever. On March 26, 1976, Major League Baseball votes to expand to Toronto, and almost immediately, 1,300 miles away in Dunedin, Florida, a small town starts to think big.
At that time, the St. Pete Times had an article in the paper in the morning in the sports section saying that Toronto had been given a franchise. We had a telephone call from Dave Ponder, who was the executive director of the Chamber of Commerce in Dunedin at that time. He called and started to get a feel from the members of the city commission as to how they felt of the possibility of negotiating with the Blue Jays to bring them into Dunedin for spring training.
Peter Bavasi was our president then, and he was looking for a place in Florida for spring training. And he wanted to get around where there was some other teams, so there wouldn't be a lot of traveling. And right around the same time, the word got to the chamber down here in Dunedin that the Blue Jays were looking for a home.
Cecil Engelbert began to negotiate with Peter Bavasi, who was appointed as the general manager of the Toronto Blue Jays. And they hit it off real well, and so did Dave Ponder. And then we got into the fold, and Peter was very impressed with Dunedin. He liked the location, the fact that it was in Pinellas County, the fact that it was near the airport, the fact that it was near the beaches. He felt that it was just a perfect location. The only problem was we didn't have any facilities. We had a high school baseball facility that seated about 400 people. And the question was, you know, how are we going to accommodate spring training? So what we did was we negotiated to bring in some bleacher seats and kept the original grandstand the way it was. We went along third base and first base line with aluminum bleacher seats. I think we accommodated somewhere in the neighborhood of about 1,500 people at that time.
When we first came down here in '77, I mean, we were sitting on telephone books in our offices and sharing telephones and sharing space. We had to rent trailers. The locker rooms. I remember when I was the trainer, the locker rooms had all the weight equipment right in the middle of the locker room. It wasn't separate.
But the Jays don't just need a place to play games. The fledgling franchise also needs a multi-field training facility to complete its spring training wish list. And while there is no available land adjacent to Grant Field, the city does find a location nearby for what is known today as the Engelbert Complex.
We were able to build locker room facilities. We were able to build a three-field facility, and it accommodated them for a few years. And then as time went on, the demands became a little bit more because they were growing. They were growing in the minor league system. Their major league facilities team was beginning to take shape.
Just like the players in those early days, the fans that make the trip south for spring training are greeted with modest amenities.
They followed the club. They came to Dunedin. They didn't get much in return as far as accommodations go. We didn't have a lot of filling stations. We didn't have a lot of restaurants. We didn't have a lot of motels. We didn't have a lot of places for people to stay. But of course, that also exposed them to the rest of Pinellas County and the Tampa Bay area. And a lot of them bought homes. We have good friends who have bought homes either in the Largo area, the Clearwater area, and the Dunedin area. There are a lot of Canadians have spent a lot of money and come into Dunedin and call it their second home.
With another upgrade to Florida Auto Exchange Stadium on the horizon, both the Jays and the city are working together once again to find a way to keep the team in the only spring training home it's ever known.
It takes a great deal of cooperation on both parts, both the city and the Blue Jays working together, trying to make ends meet. There's no question that they probably can get a better facility somewhere else. But there's no question that the city is willing to make the effort to try to accommodate what it is that they're looking for. And that's what's important. And if they continue to do that, eventually the pieces of the puzzle will come together.
You go up to Toronto or any place in Canada and people ask you where you're from, and if you say Dunedin or where you live, you'll say Dunedin. I mean, they know exactly the connection. And I remember when we first came down here, the Canadian people, including me, were calling it everything from Dunedin to Dunedin to Dunedin. But after a couple of years, everybody knows, and everybody in Canada knows about Dunedin, and it's the home of the Blue Jays.
We knew that every time they talked about the Toronto Blue Jays during spring training, that Dunedin would be a focus. We knew that it would be in every newspaper throughout the whole country that the Blue Jays are playing in Dunedin. We didn't think anything bad would come out of that.
When St. Petersburg is awarded a major league franchise in 1995, it only seems natural that the Tampa Bay Devil Rays would take up residence at Al Lang Stadium and carry on the city's proud spring training tradition. But after more than a decade, the hometown Rays are ready to spread their wings and their brand by taking the show on the road for the month of March. The team finds a willing partner a short drive south in Port Charlotte, an arrangement that didn't seem like a great fit to some initially.
Why did you want the Rays to come here? They're just right up the road. Why didn't you go after a team that would bring people from up in the Midwest or Northeast? I think one thing people don't understand, at least from a tourism standpoint, when we really need the business in this county is in the summer and fall. One of our biggest feeder markets during that time is the Tampa area. So it's a great fit from a tourism standpoint. And from their side of things, it helped them to expand their fan base.
It took probably a couple of years to really catch on that, hey, we've got spring training for the Rays, and that is such a great thing. And we're proud of that. We're proud of the relationship that we have. We're proud for what the Rays do for the community. And it's been an absolutely great partnership.
Keenly aware of the need to keep its facilities on par with others in Florida and Arizona, Charlotte County and the Rays worked together to completely renovate the complex prior to the team's arrival in 2009.
State-of-the-art weight rooms, the locker rooms, the 5 or 6 backfields that most people don't even see on a day-to-day basis for instruction. Those are very important to the players and the Rays. So it's just, you need to be able to provide a first-class facility for everyone involved these days, and I think Charlotte County has been able to do that.
After almost a decade, the Rays and their Florida State League team, the Stone Crabs, have formed a partnership with Charlotte County that benefits everyone.
To have a spring training club in your community is something that is very attractive to people coming and buying homes here. I mean, it's something that, you know, we really tout, especially the Rays. And again, because you can see the spring training, you can go to the Trop, and you can get all caught up in baseball.
The other way we look at it is that it really helps put us on the map. It generates future visitation by just creating an awareness of the destination. Several years ago, people, when I'd go on the road and talk about our area, they said, you know, where's Port Charlotte? And now I'm getting more people say, oh, that's where the Rays have spring training.
It starts with people. I think the county administration is committed, from Ray Sandrock and the commissioners. I think they're committed to the Rays and to the Stone Crabs and to baseball in Charlotte County. Likewise, the Rays are great people and they enjoy Charlotte County. They enjoy calling this place home.
While the facilities no longer resemble the modest fields used by players over 100 years ago, spring training is still successful because it continues to deliver on Al Lang's original premise. Giving teams and their fans a place to escape winter's icy grip will turn towns into household names across America and create bonds that will last generations.
It can only be a win-win situation for the area, for the city of Dunedin, for the Pinellas County, for the state of Florida. I think it just benefits everybody, and the Blue Jays too. I mean, it can be and is, and I hope it always will be, a real good relationship for the Canadian people to come down in this area.
The relationship is a lot more than about financial. It's about a partnership and a pride, and now a pride of 70 consecutive years of spring training in Clearwater.
It's why all these various cities go so hard to accommodate the major league teams and build the facilities, because they know the true value of having a major league team. And then you have the Tampa Bay Rays, which I'll put up there with any major league team as being just as good a partner as you could have.